Mira Lane's breath was shallow as she staggered from the wreckage of her ship, the last bit of life support fading as it settled. Edina, as her star charts named it, had looked inviting from space. It was a vibrant green planet alive with foliage. But now standing on its surface, she realized just how far she was from any help or familiarity. Her fingers trembled as she checked her emergency supplies. All she had left was a half-filled canteen, a rations pack, and a worn survival kit. Mira shook her head, steeling herself against the nagging panic that threatened to rise in her throat. She'd been trained for survival, and she reminded herself that panicking would only waste her precious energy. Taking a deep breath, she examined her surroundings. Towering trees arched toward the sky, their branches spreading like arms, casting dappled shadows over the vibrant forest floor. Strange, luminescent plants lined the path in glowing shades of green and blue, bathing her in an otherworldly glow. Oddly enough, despite its alien beauty, the air here was breathable. The light from the twin suns, soft and diffuse, gave everything a dreamlike quality. As Mira ventured forward, she became aware of sounds, rustling leaves, distant animal calls, and a quiet hum that seemed to pulse from the very ground. There was a life force here that felt almost tangible, and she found herself caught between awe and apprehension. After what felt like hours of wandering, exhaustion weighed on her shoulders. She knelt by a small stream to refill her canteen, watching the crystal-clear water trickle over her fingers. The gentle sound was calming, a reminder that, for now, she was safe. But just as her breathing steadied, she sensed a presence. Mira froze, her heart pounding as she looked up. Standing at the edge of the clearing, partially hidden by the foliage, was a figure. As Mira's eyes adjusted, she realized it was a woman, tall and slender, with soft blue skin and hair that shimmered faintly under the sunlight. The woman's eyes were silver, and they seemed to reflect the light in a way that made them almost glow. Before Mira could move or speak, the woman raised a hand, a gesture that was calm, almost welcoming. Another figure appeared beside her, then another, until there were 3 blue-skinned women observing her with quiet curiosity. Their expressions were unreadable, a blend of caution and fascination. Mira's first instinct was to back away, but something in the way they looked at her calmed her. It was as if they were as intrigued by her as she was by them. She took a cautious step forward, raising her hand in greeting, mirroring the gesture the first woman had made. "Hello?" she called, her voice soft but steady. The woman in the lead tilted her head slightly, her silver eyes narrowing with interest. After a moment's pause, she stepped forward, speaking in a language Mira didn't recognize, a melodic blend of soft tones and rhythmic syllables that seemed to flow like the stream beside them. Mira shook her head gently, signaling her lack of understanding. The woman's expression softened, and she tried again, her voice patient. "You are lost?" Her accent was lilting, her words slow and careful. Mira nodded, relief washing over her. "Yes, my ship, it's damaged. I don't know if anyone will find me." She hesitated, not wanting to appear weak, but feeling the overwhelming weight of her situation. "I'm alone." The woman exchanged a glance with her companions before she stepped closer. "You are safe here," she said, her voice gentle, soothing. "We are the Adani. I am Lyra." "Mira," she replied, managing a small smile despite the anxiety bubbling within her. I'm Mira." Lyra's eyes softened, and Mira felt a surge of comfort in the warmth of her gaze. The Adani moved with an elegance that seemed almost ethereal, their expressions gentle, yet carrying a depth she couldn't quite understand. As they moved closer, Mira felt her fear fade, replaced by a strange sense of belonging. Lyra gestured for Mira to follow them. The Adani led her through the forest, their steps light and graceful, as if they were gliding over the ground. Mira followed, entranced by their movements, feeling like she was in a waking dream. After a short walk, they reached a village hidden deep within the trees. Homes were nestled into the forest, built from smooth, glowing materials that blended with the landscape. The entire area felt alive, as if the village and forest were one. Lyra and her companions led Mira to a small, cozy dwelling, gesturing for her to enter. As she stepped inside, Mira felt her exhaustion finally catch up with her. The interior was simple yet warm, with woven fabrics and soft lights that cast a gentle glow. Lyra handed her a cup filled with a fragrant, steaming liquid. Mira hesitated for a moment before taking a sip, warmth spreading through her body as she drank. "Rest," Lyra said softly, gesturing to a cushioned area near the window. "You are safe here." Mira nodded, a sense of gratitude welling up within her. "Thank you, Lyra," she whispered, settling onto the cushions. As she closed her eyes, Mira's thoughts lingered on Lyra and the Adani. There was something magnetic about them, something that stirred a sense of comfort and perhaps a spark of something more. For the first time since the crash, Mira felt a flicker of hope, a quiet, tentative assurance that she might just be okay. In the days to come, she would discover much about Idina, about the Adani, and, perhaps, about herself. But for now, she allowed herself to rest, feeling the warmth of Lyra's gaze linger even as she drifted into sleep. Mira awoke the next morning to soft light streaming through a window carved seamlessly into the wall. The sounds of Idina, the faint chirping of distant creatures, the rustling of leaves, were a soothing reminder that she was safe. For the first time in days, Mira felt a sense of calm. As she stretched, Lyra appeared at the entrance with a gentle smile. "You slept well?" she asked, her words still carrying that melodic accent that Mira found soothing. Mira nodded, sitting up. "Yes, thank you. I feel more rested than I have in a long time." Lyra's smile widened, a glimmer of satisfaction in her silver eyes. "Good. Today, I'll show you more of our home. There is much to learn here." Together, they left the dwelling and stepped into the village, which was now alive with activity. Other Idani moved gracefully around them, nodding at Mira in quiet acknowledgement. Their movements were like poetry in motion, each gesture fluid, each step precise, as if they shared a silent language of grace. Mira couldn't help but feel a sense of awe at their unity and composure. Lyra led Mira through a narrow path that wound into the forest, where towering trees arched above, their branches intertwining like the fingers of old friends. Small, bioluminescent flowers grew along the path, casting a soft glow as they brushed past. The air was filled with a sweet fragrance Mira had never encountered, and she inhaled deeply, feeling refreshed and alive. Lyra stopped near a tree with broad, fan-like leaves, gesturing for Mira to sit beside her. "This place," Lyra began, "is where we come to think, to remember." Mira lowered herself onto the soft moss, gazing at the tranquil surroundings. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Lyra nodded, her gaze fixed on the delicate flowers around them. "Beauty is more than sight here on Idina. It is a connection." She reached down, gently brushing her fingers over the petals of a flower, and Mira noticed the bloom's soft glow pulse in response, as if reacting to Lyra's touch. Mira watched in fascination. "You're connected to this place in a way I've never seen. Idina gives us life," Lyra explained softly. "We are bonded to it, just as we are bonded to each other." Mira felt a pang of envy mixed with admiration. She had spent her life exploring the farthest reaches of the galaxy, driven by the thrill of discovery, but she had never known this kind of belonging. Her heart ached at the thought of never having a place she could call home like the Adani had with Idina. As if sensing Mira's feelings, Lyra reached out and placed a gentle hand on Mira's shoulder. "We Adani share our thoughts, our memories, through touch," she said, her voice soft. "It is a custom that brings us closer, a way to understand one another." Mira met Lyra's gaze, captivated by the depth of her expression. Lyra's hand lingered for a moment, and Mira felt an unexpected warmth spreading through her, a quiet thrill that she hadn't anticipated. The brief touch carried a gentleness and understanding that words couldn't express. Mira realized just how powerful such a connection could be. Their gaze held for a moment longer, and then Lyra withdrew her hand, her eyes holding a glimmer of curiosity. "Come," she said, standing and extending a hand to Mira. "There is much more to see." Mira took her hand, feeling a jolt of warmth at the contact, and together they continued through the forest. Lyra led her to a hidden grove where an underground hot spring bubbled gently. Steam rose in wisps, filling the air with a soft, earthy scent. The light from the twin suns filtered through the trees, casting an ethereal glow over the water's surface. This is one of our sacred places, Lyra said, her voice hushed. We come here to rejuvenate, to share our thoughts in peace. Mira knelt beside the water, dipping her fingers in. The warmth spread through her hand, soothing and invigorating at the same time. She glanced up at Lyra, who watched her with a quiet smile. Would you like to experience an Idani ritual? Lyra asked, her eyes sparkling with an unspoken invitation. Mira hesitated, feeling both a thrill and a slight apprehension. What kind of ritual? Lyra knelt beside her, gesturing to the water. We Idani sometimes share memories with those we trust, showing them glimpses of our pasts. If you are comfortable, I can share one with you. Mira's heart raced at the thought of sharing such an intimate experience with Lyra. She nodded, her curiosity outweighing her hesitation. I'd like that. With gentle fingers, Lyra placed a hand on Mira's temple, closing her eyes. Mira followed suit, feeling a soft warmth seep from Lyra's fingertips, spreading through her like a gentle wave. Suddenly, images filled her mind, vivid and bright, like scenes unfolding in a dream. She saw a young Lyra, laughing and running through the forest with other Idani children. She felt the warmth of a community, the strength of the Idani's bond with Idina, and Lyra's quiet, deep love for her home. Mira felt a pang of emotion that wasn't entirely her own, a mix of nostalgia and joy. When the memory faded, Mira opened her eyes, feeling as if she'd just stepped out of another world. She looked at Lyra with newfound understanding, her heart aching in a way that felt both thrilling and bittersweet. Thank you, Mira whispered. Her voice barely audible, she could still feel the warmth of Lyra's touch lingering, an invisible thread connecting them. Lyra smiled, her gaze warm and knowing. You are welcome, Mira. Her voice held a softness, a depth that went beyond simple kindness. Mira realized that, in this brief exchange, she had been given a glimpse into Lyra's soul. In the days that followed, Mira spent most of her time exploring Idina with Lyra as her guide. They ventured to hidden groves, deep caves lit by bioluminescent moss, and fields of flowers that only bloomed under starlight. Each day, Mira learned more about the Idani's culture, their deep respect for Idina, and the unique way they expressed affection and trust. But more than anything, Mira found herself drawn to Lyra, the Idani woman's quiet strength, her kindness, and the moments of gentle touch all stirred a longing within Mira. She hadn't expected to feel so deeply, to find such a connection on a planet so far from home. One evening, as they sat together beneath a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, Mira felt the urge to reach out, to reciprocate the intimacy that Lyra had shared with her. She placed a hand on Lyra's, feeling a warmth spread between them as their fingers intertwined. Lyra looked at her, her expression soft and unguarded, and Mira felt her heart race at the sight. They sat in silence, their hands clasped, each knowing that words were unnecessary. In that moment, Mira realized that her feelings for Lyra went beyond simple companionship. It was something deeper, something she couldn't fully name. But as they sat together beneath the starlit sky, Mira knew one thing for certain: Idina was becoming more than a place of survival. It was becoming a place of belonging and, perhaps, a place of love. The days on Idina blended into a rhythm, each one feeling like a dream Mira didn't want to end. The landscape's quiet beauty and the gentle presence of the Idani had become a comfort she'd never anticipated. Every day brought new discoveries, vibrant groves that pulsed with light, creatures with feathers that shimmered in the dusk, and ancient trails that whispered of an age-old connection to the land. Through it all, Mira found herself drawn closer to Lyra. They'd spent countless hours together, exploring Idina's mysteries, sharing stories of their lives, and exchanging quiet moments that went unspoken but were deeply felt. Lyra's touch had become familiar, yet each time her fingers brushed Mira's hand or shoulder, Mira felt a warmth that filled her heart. One afternoon, as they walked through a glen filled with translucent, floating flowers, Lyra paused, her expression thoughtful. Mira, she said, her voice gentle. The council wishes to speak with you. Mira's heart skipped a beat, her mind racing with possibilities. She had known this moment would come, that eventually, the Idani leaders would have questions about her future. She met Lyra's gaze, trying to read the emotions hidden behind those silver eyes. Will you come with me? Lyra nodded, her expression softening. Always. They walked together to the council chambers, a large, open space surrounded by towering trees that seemed to listen as they approached. Inside, the Adani elders sat in a quiet circle, their expressions serene yet curious. Mira felt Lyra's hand brush hers, a silent reassurance that gave her strength. The elder in the center, a dignified woman named Saren, inclined her head in greeting. Mira, you have lived among us for some time now, she began, her voice smooth and measured. We have come to know you, and we see the kindness and respect you have shown Edina, but we must ask, what do you wish for your future? Mira hesitated, glancing at Lyra, who offered her a small, encouraging nod.
Taking a deep breath,
Mira answered honestly. I came to Edina by accident, a stranger in need of refuge, but now I feel like I belong here, as if this planet has become a part of me. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I want to stay. If you'll allow me, I want to live among you, to continue learning and contributing however I can. Saren's eyes softened, and a gentle murmur ran through the council. You understand that this choice is not a simple one, she said, her gaze thoughtful. You would be giving up your life beyond Edina. The Adani are bound to this land, our lives deeply connected to its rhythm. Once you commit, you will be a part of Edina in spirit and in purpose. Are you prepared for this? Mira glanced at Lyra, feeling a warmth in her chest that gave her the courage to answer. Yes, she said, her voice steady. I'm prepared. Saren nodded, her expression one of acceptance. Then we welcome you, Mira, as one of our own. Relief flooded Mira's heart, followed by a surge of joy. She turned to Lyra, who smiled, her eyes bright with unspoken emotion. Thank you, Mira whispered, feeling the weight of her decision settle with a comforting certainty. The council rose, each elder offering her a respectful nod before departing, leaving Mira and Lyra alone. For a moment, they stood in silence, absorbing the enormity of what had just happened. Then, with a soft, almost tentative touch, Lyra took Mira's hand, leading her out into the open glen. As they walked, Lyra spoke, her voice low. I had hoped you would choose to stay. Mira, I couldn't imagine Edina without you here. Mira's heart swelled, her hand tightening around Lyra's. I couldn't leave this place nor you. Her voice trembled slightly, but she held Lyra's gaze, feeling the intensity of the connection between them. They walked in silence until they reached a secluded clearing. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over the landscape, and the air was filled with the soft hum of Edina's life force. Lyra turned to face Mira, her silver eyes shining with a mix of tenderness and vulnerability. Mira, Lyra murmured, her fingers brushing Mira's cheek in a gesture so gentle it made Mira's breath catch. I have shared many memories with you, but there is one I have kept close, one that I wish to share now. Mira felt her heart quicken as Lyra's hand settled on her temple, the touch both familiar and exhilarating. She closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of Lyra's presence surrounding her. Suddenly, images and feelings filled her mind, Lyra's earliest memories, her joys and fears, and the quiet ache she'd felt ever since Mira's arrival. In Lyra's memories, Mira saw moments of longing, the way Lyra had watched her from afar, wondering if Mira felt the same spark, the same connection. The memories spoke of a hope that had grown steadily, carefully nurtured until it bloomed into something more. When the memory faded, Mira opened her eyes, feeling a rush of emotion as she looked at Lyra. I felt it too, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. From the moment I met you, I knew there was something between us. Lyra's lips curved into a soft smile, and she leaned in, her forehead resting gently against Mira's. Then let us make a new memory together. They stood there in the fading light, hands clasped, their breaths mingling as they shared a quiet, profound connection. Words felt unnecessary. Everything they needed to say was understood in the soft exchange of touch, in the warmth that lingered between them. As night fell, Mira and Lyra walked back to the village, side by side, their fingers entwined. Mira felt a sense of peace she had never known, a contentment that went beyond words. She had found a home, a purpose, and a connection that felt as deep as the roots of Edina itself. From that night on, Mira's life became woven into the fabric of Idani culture. She and Lyra shared both their lives and their memories, finding joy in the simple beauty of Idina and each other. In the quiet moments beneath Idina's twin moons, Mira knew that she had finally found a place where she belonged, a love that was as boundless as the stars, and a future that held nothing but promise.